Hi, my name's Dennis, and this is the sixth video in a series on temperament and health. Today we're going to look at water-soluble and oil-soluble as polarities, the fundamental basis of organic chemistry. The mandala of the four temperaments is a very nice way to understand some of the principles of organic chemistry. So the mandala, there's that circle with the L and G. L is levity. That means things move up. G is gravity. Things move down. So the basic polarity of levity and gravity, levity is hot, warm goes up, and gravity is cold, things go down. And between hot and cold, we have moist and dry properties, where moisture can be either on the ground or up in a cloud, and hot ends up drying things out that then fall down as an ash. So we've covered that idea in the past, and we're going to take it into an interesting realm of organic chemistry. So let's start with the idea of hot. What element in organic chemistry is hot? So let's move hydrogen over there. Hydrogen in standard chemistry is known as warmth. So chemical reactions, it creates a kind of activity of dissolving and moving towards vapor and warmth states. And when we get enough hydrogen that a compound begins to really interact from hydrogen, there's a tendency for the heat to begin to dry things out. So we're going to draw an arrow here down to dry. And in dry, we can now place carbon. So carbon, ash, is dry as a temperament, and the carbon represents the dry pole falling out of levity and moving towards gravity. So we can draw an arrow here now from carbon moving down towards cold, where it's in the deep gravity pole, and in the position of cold we can place oxygen. And we say, well, what does oxygen have to do with cold? Cold means that things fall down temperamentally, and they become heavier. So in standard chemistry, oxygen is known to increase molecular weight. Things oxidize by taking on oxygen, and they become heavier. So oxygen represents the cold pole of ultimate gravity. So now the one that's left here, we can see, we can take nitrogen, we'll put nitrogen in the moist pole. Well, what does nitrogen have to do with moisture? Oxygen, moving towards moisture by oxidation, creates a condition where sugars are formed. We'll go there in a moment. And that makes it possible for energy to begin to move between cells and the blood or whatever, and proteins. So that's a moistening process. I'll be able to explain that a little better when we actually look at the properties, but nitrogen represents moist conditions because it supports the dissolving of sugars by protein. Let's now complete the final little nitrogen goes to hydrogen, and we get gases, and we're back in the warmth state. So in a simple way, hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen represent a movement, the temperamental mandala. Let me just erase these guys here, that are very useful when we want to understand organic chemistry. So let's take hydrogen moving down towards the dry pole, and we could say, what is there and the hydrogen that is causing hydrogen to move towards dryness. And the first thing we run into there is the idea that we need a substance that connects to water and also connects to warmth. And the substance that connects to warmth and water is alcohol. So hydrogen moving towards the dry pole, the first substance that really does that is alcohol. And then there's a drier condition that then moves substances into fat. And fat really represents dryness because it's a hydrocarbon. And we could say, well, what does fat have to do with dryness? Fat is hydrophobic. That means it doesn't like water. So it's chemically, it is dry. And when fats are burned, they create debris or ash that has in it salt. And salt begins to go down towards the cold pole in gravity because it falls out of solution. And salt in the context of oxygen, let's put ash in here. The fat burns and the carbon is left, creates an ash, and in ash is the salt of how the fat got formed. Salt interacts with oxygen in the context of water. And when that happens, it becomes acidic. Acids and oxygen and carbon come together in the forming of sugars. So we're starting to turn again towards the levity pole of energy, and sugars then interact with nitrogen in the formation of proteins. So that was a lot, but this scaffolding here, hot, dry, cold, and moist, hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, sets the stage for understanding a great deal of organic chemistry. How are alcohols formed? What are fats? What are salts? What are acids? What are sugars? What are proteins? As we go along in the work, it will be possible to use this mandala in many, many situations to begin to see how we can make a remedy, what is the disease process, and we'll take a look at that in terms of how membranes are formed in cells. Cold and moist substances, sugars, acids, salts, are water-soluble. Proteins, alcohols, fats, they tend to be oil-soluble. That's not restrictive in any way because there are a lot of things across the border. But in general, cold and moist is water-soluble, hot and dry is oil-soluble. We'll look at them in detail in the future. Thanks for watching.